Okay, we're all ready to go. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. Just a couple of notes before we begin. If any of you were not on our email list, just please drop me a note in the chat and we'll make sure to get you added. Also in the chat right now is a link to documents from today's meeting of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games. That includes the agenda deck, so you'll get all of the detail that was on screen. And we also have the two letters, one from the USOPC to Thomas Bach and the other from the Salt Lake Committee. Those are now in that folder. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the chair of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games, Cindy Crane. She will kick it off and run through a short agenda, and then we'll have a Q&A after. Cindy, take it away.
Thanks, Tom. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad we could have a media session with you following our board meeting, our second official board meeting of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games. As hopefully you were all able to hear and join on the Facebook live stream. We really were focused first and foremost today on our athletes. As I think we've communicated with you, we have a core principle of athletes first, and we will be making sure that we are living that principle in everything that we do. So just a tremendous spotlight on Apolo Ohno and Chris Waddell, and the stories and their lives and their everything about it is so inspiring and so uplifting that it is the absolute best way for us to really bring ourselves to grounding and our focus of our priority, which our work is all about the work for the athletes. So a lot of focus on athletes. We've got I see Kat's on the call. I'm thinking Chris is on here, but I haven't seen him yet. I'm still going through. But we also focused from a committee standpoint. And our real focus around the committees is our Utah Athletes Advisory Council that is co-chaired by Catherine Rainey and Chris Waddell. And then also focus around our host venue communities committee, which is co-chaired by Mayors Mendenhall and Bierman. These two committees are absolutely critical to our success as we move down this exciting path for a decision around a bid and a timing of a bid. And the reason it's critical path is because these two committees are going to be shaping the bid that we ultimately submit when we submit it. So very excited to be able to have those committees up and running. The reach of those committees is going to be expansive. And that just means the size of the value will be unprecedented for us. So big focus around that today. A little tiny bit of focus around a report out of our governance board meeting, which we briefed you all on following that meeting, just making sure the board and as well as media and the public were aware of the documents that were adopted, the core principles, the operating principles, conflict of interest, the code of conduct and ethics, and very importantly, the board resolution around diversity and inclusion. These really form the bedrock of our committee and who we are and how we will operate moving forward. So big excitement there. We also highlighted pretty extensively what we've been doing in 2020 around our legacy and keeping our legacy going, keeping the state of sport alive and well in Utah, and making sure that folks were aware of our significant role in helping bring sport back to live events and live television during this pandemic time. So we're geared up, we're ready to go, we're positioned, we are in our starting gates. And everybody is busting at the seams to break out of the gates and really get going. So with that, I am very, very excited to be able to talk with you all today. We have Fraser on the team. He's our secret weapon. Hopefully he didn't blush too hard when I introduced him that way. And then we also have Catherine on here. We have Colin and Jeff on here. So we are available to you for your questions. And with that, without further ado, Tom, I think we turn it over for you to MC and field the questions and process.
Okay, thank you very much, Cindy. Do we have any questions from any of the media? Again, we have with us here today Catherine Rainey from the Athletes Advisory Council, Fraser Bullock, the CEO, President and CEO, as well as co-chairs Jeff Robbins and Colin Hilton. Any questions from the media? And just unmute yourself and we'll take it away.
I've got one. This is Brady McCombs from the Associated Press. Thanks for making the time. What's the latest expectation on the timing of all this? Do you know when the IOC might make a decision on the host city for either 2030 or 2034? I know that's been in flux, but what's the latest intel on that and how are you preparing?
Yeah, Brady, hey, thanks for the question. You know, we had the Chief Executive Officer of the USOPC on the call with us at the board meeting this morning. We also had the chair and president of the USOPC board on there as well. I think the reality of the situation is that obviously with the delay of Tokyo and all that the IOC is handling with the reshaping and preparing for a Tokyo 2021. And then couple on top of that, preparing for Beijing, that's just right on the heels of that. We fully expect that the timing will be delayed. There is no official timing. You know, with this new process, there really are no timelines. But rest assured, we will be ready. We did send a letter to the president of the International Olympic Committee from the governor, the mayor, and from Fraser and I. And the USOPC also sent a companion letter. And, you know, that was really a formal step as far as we're concerned in an informal process in order to officially signal and convey our enthusiasm and our intent to host a future Winter Olympic Games. And we are ready when they are ready. We got a very supportive letter back from the International Olympic Committee President, Thomas Bach. And we will just continue this dialogue phase and we will go with them on the schedule when they're ready.
Quick follow-up. As a committee, have you set any deadlines for when you want to have the formal bid ready, like a year or 2 years from now or anything, any timeline like that for yourselves?
Brady, no, we have not. You know, we are doing the foundational groundwork that's going to be necessary. But until there's clarity more on a decision to bid and what we're bidding for, and then a reasonably known time frame, we are not setting hard and fast deadlines.
Thank you, Brady. Thank you, Cindy. Any other questions from the media?
Yeah. Hi, Lisa Roche from Deseret News. And Cindy, I apologize. My basement office is a little dark. Rocky Mountain Power is doing some maintenance in my neighborhood and has knocked power out all day. But don't worry, I won't blame you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm wondering about the response from Dr. Bach, if that's something you can share as well with us. A copy of that letter. I was having a little trouble getting things to load with no internet, so that would be great to see the supportive language. I know he can be somewhat effusive at times, but I'm also wondering about the language of the letter that you all sent. talking about the need for deep collaboration on risk mitigation from both the USOPC and the IOC. Can you talk more specifically about what the risk is that you see, and what that collaboration might look like? Maybe even in a general sense. Obviously, there's health issues, but there's financial issues as well, right?
Yeah, so Lisa, I'll tackle a front end of that, and then I'll ask Fraser to jump in on this as well, because I think the message I don't want you to take from that is I don't want you to convey that we haven't extensively built risk management into our thinking and our processes already. We have. And they were a core part of the 2002 games as well, as you guys are well aware. We dealt with some challenges and had to manage through that then. To first and foremost, though, answer your question about the letter from President Bok, I have no issue providing that letter. There's nothing in there that concerns that we would withhold from the public. So, I'll put that in TK and the team's hands to be able to get that out to folks. As where we sit today, I would say we have a renewed appreciation for the expanse of types of risks that can manifest themselves. There's nothing more of a reality than when there's a significant upheaval that's just occurred. And so it really brings risk front and center. And you start to think of it maybe differently than you had been thinking of it. And so that's really the space we're in, and that's really the space in the intent of what we've conveyed. And really, they're dealing with it themselves, right? The International Olympic Committee is dealing with it as they work their way through Tokyo. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee are dealing with it as they work their way through the delays and those things. And so what we're trying to signal is we don't want to be in a vacuum trying to figure out risk mitigation and management just on our own. We believe that partnering and getting the benefits of all of us in that process, because it is a shared risk. It's not a single risk that resides with an OCOG. It's not a single risk that resides at the IOC or the USOPC. It really is a shared risk, and it can manifest itself obviously. It can impact schedule then impacts contracts that you might have in place, different structures that you have in place. And ultimately those can have impacts financially. But it also has impacts logistically and creates operational challenges. And, so it permeates almost everywhere. So that's really what's been behind our message in the letter around the collaboration around risk. Fraser, anything you want to add there?
Yes, thank you. The risk is part of any Olympic Games, and it's very much integrated into the planning, whether it's the postponement of one event due to weather, to transportation or all kinds of things. Those are part of the fabric of planning for games, but this is a different dimension. And so looking at this higher dimension of potential risk, we have to broaden our sights in terms of potential risks that could happen, which we've done. We've taken an additional planning approach to that and a budget approach to that that's built into what we're doing. But as Cindy said, this is more than just us. This is really an Olympic family in a big way. And it's not just the IOC, it's not just the USOPC, they are our closest partners, but it is broadcasters, it is sponsors, it is spectators, it's everybody that could be impacted by this. And making sure that as we do contingency planning and risk mitigation, we're we have a holistic view of the entire Olympic family. And that's what we're working through, but having their input along this path, particularly with their experience with Tokyo, and they're seeing the impact of a major interruption like this, there are many lessons that we can learn from them. And we want to make sure we learn those lessons and integrate those into our planning.
So, Fraser, maybe this is for you, although Cindy, I appreciate what you had to say about how to look at this. Fraser, does risk mitigation look different going forward? Because in the past, as I recall, OCOGs basically accepted the risk, and the risk was guaranteed by usually a government entity. A little bit different in the United States, where the state absorbed the risk as opposed to the nation itself. But do you see that risk being shared more evenly? I think Cindy spoke of a shared risk, but the reality is with the contract, the risk really is on the OCOG. Do you see that changing going forward because of what's happened with Tokyo and what could happen with increased insurance costs? We've talked about that before, with different health protocols that might have to be put in place and be a lot more expensive. Is this going to be more of a shared risk going forward?
I think our focus is really just trying to understand with our partners what the world looks like today. It is a new world, it's a different world, and how we should approach it. So no detailed information along that at all. We just want to explore, and that's the intent of the letter. We want to explore with you how we collectively can mitigate risk.
Is that what you would hope for, though, that it would become more of a shared risk opportunity going forward? Salt Lake wasn't in that position in 2002, but
yeah, we're not going to comment on any of the details of how anything like that would work. We're just in learning mode and partnership mode at this point in time.
Correct. Hey, TK, can I divert for just a quick second? I would like to ask Kat if she could just highlight, again, just getting back to athletes first, and this is really about the athletes. Catherine, we've been having discussions about athletes and, how we ramp up our focus of athletes first. And you are so engaged in those efforts. Can you just highlight a couple things in that area?
Yeah, I'm happy to, and thank you for the time. And so, working collaboratively with my fellow co-chair, Chris Waddell, we are really excited at the level of engagement that our leadership is encouraging from athletes. And I think this is unprecedented even from what we did in 2002. We've really amplified this. And so Chris and I have really been working hard on figuring out the right structure to put in place so that we are, again, to my point that I said in the meeting, we're ready, willing, and able to ramp up with our athletes. And we know that this is going to be a long process as well. And there are going to be times where we're going to flex up and we're going to flex down. And we're looking at a couple of different aspects. We want to engage athletes who participated in O2. We want to engage the athletes who are here right now, currently training, competing, the Olympians and Paralympians. And we want to look at our upcoming hopefuls. We want to make sure that we're looking at diversity and inclusion. Athletes can play a tremendous role in our communities and inspiring our kids. And I know I've said this before, but if they can see it, they can be it, right? To have somebody like Derek Parra, who grew up out of poverty, and he was the first Mexican American to win a Winter Olympic medal. What an inspiration to kids that we can utilize. And he wants to give back. And I think that's kind of one of the most amazing things that we have here in Utah. As I shared with the committee this morning, we have a list of over 160 athletes that call Utah home in some shape or form, whether they live here or they were born here. And that's unprecedented. And we have this opportunity to engage them in so many different ways. And again, kudos to Cindy and Fraser for their openness and their desire to have that input, because sport is evolving. It's changing all the time. And we want to make sure that we put on the best games possible from start to finish. And that, you know, Fraser, at one point we had a meeting and you said, I think the athletes have all earned the right to be a part of this process. And it's just really exciting to be able to include them in this. And, you know, we look forward to working with you all in the media and helping to share our stories. The athletes, everyone has a unique and inspiring story to tell and to share. And I think this is going to be something that's really going to make these games and this effort truly memorable. So
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks.
Okay, TK, I'm giving it back to you.
Thank you. Any other questions from our media? We've got a few minutes left.
Yes, please. Neil Shepherd from Inside the Games, based in England. Hello,
Neil,
Cindy.
thanks for joining us.
Hello there, Neil. Good to see you again.
No problem. Thanks very much. I was just wondering about liaising with the Los Angeles 2028 organising committee. What sort of dialogue there might be with them going forward? Perhaps things you could learn from them, for example. Could you perhaps expand on that point, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Neil, we are in dialogue. Obviously, you know, they are gearing up, coming out of, you know, kind of a lull with the pandemic. But probably the greatest level of engagement and dialogue right now really is with Catherine and Chris and the their chief athlete officer for the 2028 games. And so Catherine, you might want to highlight that.
I'm happy to share. You know, after our first official meeting that we had in, I think it was in February, Chris Waddell and myself, we really, I will say in typical athlete style, jumped out of the gates right away and we said, we have to have a meeting with Janet. I was in a leadership role with the USOPC's Athletes Advisory Council during the LA 2024-2028 bid efforts. And I have to just say, we were so impressed at their level of engagement. And so when Chris and I were tasked with this role of co-chairing our athletes council, we knew instantly that we needed to connect with Janet. And, you know, I'll share on a personal note, I was really excited. I got to meet Janet Evans. She was like one of my heroes growing up. And so here I am getting to have a peer-to-peer conversation with her. And it was really exciting, but she was so welcoming. And, you know, to this day, we are still in correspondence. We are still going back and forth, talking about best ways that we can include athletes. And I've said this before, but I think this is really, you know, it's kind of the beauty of the Olympic movement. And we always say that you're part of the Olympic family, right? And she opened up right away and said, you know, here are things that I learned. Here are things, best practices of ways to move forward. And we've really taken a lot of her advice to heart and tried to implement it. And we're just truly appreciative of it. And I think it's just a really great opportunity for us to have another connection, another touch point, another collaboration with their bid effort.
Fraser, do you want to just hit a couple high points on the maybe broader dialogue that we're having with folks amongst the 2028 group, obviously looking for learnings and synergies and things of that nature?
Yes, we have had some calls, and it's really a partnership with the USOPC and with the leadership of LA 2028, and talking about, and because they're part of the dialogue of how do we look at 2030 versus 2034, what are the pluses and minuses? And they've given us good insight and input. And if we are, for example, if we are in 2030, how could we collaborate together? They're very open to that. But if we're 2034, how does that look differently? So they're inviting, they're helpful, good people, but our top priority is to help them be successful. They have the games, and so we respect what they're trying to do. And whether we're 30 or 34, we'll be cheering them on and helping them every step of the way.
Good point. Thanks.
Can
TK?
oh,
Go
I
ahead,
was
Kath.
going to say, I just wanted to add one more comment, and I think it's just really important to highlight, LA 2028 and our efforts. We need to work together. We need to be partners, because the reality is we collectively can have a dramatic impact on Olympic and Paralympic sports here in the United States. We have this amazing opportunity to affect it in the summer and the winter games. And so, again, we need to work collaboratively, uplift one another, so that we can have that opportunity.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Neil. Any other questions from the media?
Yeah, I
have
have one for it's probably more for Jeff and Colin, but I'll throw it out there. I saw on the agenda that there was, as usual, a push to have more world championships and more high caliber competitions. How is that looking for next year? And as far as juggling that with the pandemic and not knowing when things will be able to open up.
Jeff and Colin, you each want to contribute here?
All right, you want me to jump
Sure.
in first, Colin?
Sure. I would say, we always are a pretty regular stop on a number of sport World Cups and World Championships, speed skating, sliding sports. And obviously, while we've got some immediate challenges this year, we've already been securing future events, not just at the World Cup level, but the Junior World Championships in biathlon are coming in 2023. We have an interest to basically keep doing what we're doing, but ramp it up. And Jeff and I are in constant dialogue about how we can be a more regular stop on each of our winter sports. And I think that's what you're going to see. We are knowing there will be interest, and we're excited because we have those teams and venues already in place, and it's easy for us to ramp up our efforts and keep that going. Jeff?
Yeah, good points, Colin. I think one of the things we talked about today is, of course, part of Athletes First. I should tie this into Athletes First, right? Because we've been talking about that. Is athletes train and do so much to try to make it to the podium, right? So the events, the competition is really the payoff for all the hard work. So to continue to bring all sorts of events into the state of Utah is terrific for our athletes. But it's also good for our economy. It's good for our image. And so Utah, the state of sports, kind of our sports brand. We talked today about, we've had about 800 events since 2000 when we were formed. About 400 of those are what we would call Olympic related events. So they would be contested in the Olympics. It may not be a World Cup or a World Championship, but they're events that take place in the Olympics. Since 2018, we've had about 32 events that we've worked on that are World Championships, World Cups, and would be more defined as Olympic related. And so we've had tremendous impact. And during this COVID time, one of the stories that really sets us apart, and Colin's played a key part of that with training athletes up in the park and the different venues, is we've done unprecedented things here during the COVID-19 time. We've had 7 events. We had a water polo event about a week and a half ago with 1,200 people that came here for 4 days, had to move from another state, and we did not have one positive COVID test. We had 7 events since May, generating about 40 million in economic impact and about 40 million in media value to the state. So this notion of Utah, the state of sport, and what we're doing on that in that space, I don't know there's any place in the world that's having that success, because like I said in the beginning, athletes want to compete. I was an athlete. I played amateur and professional sports, and yeah, I like to work out, but I didn't like to work out that much. I like to get on the stage and try to win. So that's a little bit of what we talked about today as it relates to return to sport and what we've been doing. We've got a couple of exciting events. I think next year we've got 50 events planned right now. Most of the events have decided to come back. They haven't canceled, they've postponed. So if we can mitigate this COVID time right now, we look forward to a great schedule next year. And hey, we'll be flexible. We got to be adaptable because you don't know what's happening right now in that world. And but I would put up what we've done against anyone globally in terms of navigating this very, very difficult COVID time.
Can you give us an idea of what some of the headliners are that you have coming up for next year?
Well, right now we have a Vans scheduled, a Tony Hawk event, which is going to be great. Skateboarding is in the Olympics, as we know now, so that's a fun one. We have working on one right now that we haven't. You'll be the first to know next to Lisa. No, I'm just kidding, Lisa. That if we land this, it's a major international one. We've got a list of World Cups, like Colin said, that we're planning on. Deer Valley. The Deer Valley event is still planned coming up the third week of February, or January rather. So we've got a lot of events. I mean, our list is fairly significant. We've got a world championship in Ironman, the largest Ironman in the world that's scheduled. It's the 70.3 World Championship. So one of the things that I think we've shined a lot on, again, we want to take care of the athletes for sure, but part of that's the competition is in this difficult time. We haven't just kind of sat on our hands. We've been pretty darn busy. Does that help?
It does.
Hey, and Julie, I'd just like to add, the one thing that really distinguishes our region is the level of consistency that we will have leading up to whenever that date of a future games, through the games and after the games, with the relationships that we already have with the international winter sport federations, are obviously USNGB, and the event teams and the volunteers and the technical officials. Those, we already have those relationships every day now leading up to 2030 or 34. And we'll have that through the games and after the games. We are doing it every day. And that's what a lot of the community and winter sport events love about Utah, is that we are here, we're training a next generation of technical officials, and we can put on events in a really good way.
And one other item, Colin, we're America's choice right now, but we really want to be the world's choice. And a key part of that is World Cups, World Championships, all of the kinds of international events that take place. And the goal of being America's choice is really to try to become the world's choice. So hopefully we can do that. And that's certainly where we're headed in terms of events and all the things we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Colin and Jeff. Thank you, Julie. Any other final questions before we wrap it up?
Hi, thanks. It's Rob Livingstone, GamesBeats.com in Toronto. A budget question, actually. Is there any recognition in the budget of the risk in 2030, perhaps, being so close to LA, 18 months apart, that there might be a negative impact on revenues? And wouldn't that, or does that make 2034 more attractive? And I'm not sure.
I'll just do a general comment on that. We're still working through those issues and those questions and trying to put together foundational elements as best we can. But that's certainly one of the factors we're considering.
Is there?
I would just add on to that. Please keep in mind, Robert, that we start in a fabulous place with all of our venues in place, fully active and utilized. Starting points matter, is my message there. So we feel very good about a games in 2030 or 2034, but we're still doing our work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy and Fraser. Thank you, Rob. Any final questions before we wrap up?
I think Brady had one.
Yeah, I was just going to squeeze in. It sounds like you remain committed to a future bid, even after seeing what the pandemic has done to Tokyo. And I would hope we don't have another global pandemic in 2030 or 2034, but it does show the kind of risk that looms that you mentioned. But I just wanted to get you to elaborate a little bit on that. As you've seen what's happened with the pandemic, with the games that are closer, has that impacted at all how you think about this, or Salt Lake City's commitment to a future bid?
Brady, I would say obviously, as these things are evolving, we are staying engaged and keeping an eye on all of those aspects, really more from a learnings perspective, and being ready to adapt as well. From a commitment standpoint, I would say that we remain very committed in order, to host a future Winter Olympics. And that is why just a couple weeks ago, why we sent the letter to President Bach in partnership with the USOPC's letter going to President Bach as well. It really was to formally, in an informal process, I'll say it again, make sure that they knew that we are committed. Our intention is to host a future Winter Olympics, and that we remain ready, willing, and able to advance in that process when they're ready.
And let me just add to that. It's really interesting. If we go back to 2002, obviously we had a very significant event in 9/11. Nobody could imagine that. It's even hard today to comprehend what happened. But what the outcome of that for us was that the Olympics played a special role in unifying the world under the umbrella of sport and bringing back hope and inspiration as we watch these athletes perform at extraordinary levels and inspire us with hope, and light the fire within was our theme. And I'm anticipating and I'm hopeful that for Tokyo, this is the opportunity, as we're coming out of the pandemic, for the world to be united together, for the Olympians to inspire us with their great stories, how they fought through training through COVID and the world coming together. I believe we're going to see something incredibly special. So it hasn't dampened our enthusiasm. It recommits us to being able to bring the world together, to inspire them, and do it through the wonderful stories of our athletes.
Great, thank you. If no other questions, we will wrap things up. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, I put the link on the screen. If you need any of the documents from today, just click that and you can get those. If you are not on our email list, please let me know directly at tom@tomkellycommunications.com, and we'll make sure to get you on. Thanks to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.